Goal one of the education goals for young Australians for students in Australian school settings is the goal that the Australian education system promotes excellence and equity. The factors promoting limited excellence and equity include social class and socioeconomic status. The forms of capital, cultural inclusivity, creativity, gender, mental health, and disabilities. In terms of disadvantage due to social class, educational inequity is based on opportunities, experiences, and outcomes. According to Perry, opportunities refer to a student's access to quality resources, qualified and skilled educators, and facilities. Educational experiences relate to the interactions and relationships in a classroom disciplinary climate between teacher and student and also other peers. Lastly, outcomes refer both to the academic and non-academic values, skills, qualifications, which a student develops from a schooling environment. Perry argues that these three factors and the determiners of academic success and are often affected by social class and socioeconomic status. For example, students from Australian rural and lower socioeconomic areas and Indigenous students are often educationally disadvantaged due to financial, geographical, and cultural factors. Therefore, these students tend to have a lower educational outcome. As you can see in the contrasting pie graphs, LUM's 2015 study compares Year 7's NAPLAN results to the international benchmark. Due to social class and socioeconomic factors, 62% of Indigenous students versus 27% of non-Indigenous students did not meet this benchmark. When observing the educational reproduction of inequity in Australia, Bordeaux's four capitals support Perry's 2018 and Lamb's 2015 study outcomes. Economic capital refers to financial and material assets in order for some students to access quality education and resources. Parents or carers must also have substantial economic capital. Economic capital can also determine the opportunities for students to access resources from their own homes, which would assist them in their learning. Social capital refers to the family, networks, and relationships an individual possesses. In an educational setting, social capital is essential for students to attain academic success. It includes the contrasts, support, and guidance of teachers and parents, healthy relationships with peers, and an overall positively disciplined classroom climate. Symbolic capital includes status, honor, and values. Student symbolic capitals are highly influenced by their schooling environment, including school values and pride, peer encouragement, competitiveness and ranking systems, and extracurricular activities. Cultural capital includes knowledge and cultural characteristics and traditions. In a school setting, educators must understand that their students come from diverse cultures around the world, and they must also educate other students about this. The misunderstanding or even complete disregard of certain cultures is what occasionally disadvantages culturally diverse students. This view supports Lamb's 2015 study outcome of Indigenous students often struggling to meet benchmarks. The different groups described by Perry have unequal access to capital, especially financially, socially, and culturally. This does not promote equity and excellence, it promotes disadvantage. In an attempt to try and better the promotion of excellence and equity in Australian classrooms, many schools around Australia have attempted culturally inclusive education. Multicultural Day is a celebratory day in which participating Australian schools recognise and celebrate the many different cultures that can be found in Australia. In the 2019 study done by Watkins and Noble, a multicultural day for kindergarten to year 2 students was observed. The China Room staff celebrated the Chinese culture by providing students with dumplings and watching the Walt Disney cartoon movie Mulan. Whilst these activities are engaging, they are not a true representation or teaching of Chinese culture. Mulan featured Chinese characters with American accents. Additionally, there was no engagement or questioning with critical thinking engagement skills, or deeper and more complex issues of cultures and traditions from all over the world. This does not allow students to learn about themselves or even others in a genuinely and culturally enriching way. This does not promote culturally inclusive education and therefore limits equity in classrooms in Australia. Shaped and directed creativity teaching allows for impulsive students to avoid disrupting and alienating others, whilst also promoting excellence. According to Kaufman and Beghetto, teaching individual creativity is as essential as containing overexcitement. In their 2013 paper, they argue that teachers often subconsciously focus on the negativity and inappropriateness that stems from creativity. This includes the possibility of teachers' beliefs in the widely supported hypothesis that creativity comes at the cost of mental health and other negative personal attributes. They believe more teachers should duplicate organizational researchers' understandings of creativity in regards to CMC, construct of creative metacognition. CMC possesses three interconnected parts: knowledge, experience, and monitoring and control, which can allow teachers to shape and direct creativity. Until teachers apply CMC or another construct to assist in creative teaching, there will be limited promotion of excellence in our classrooms. Gender and mental health are both topics that are often controversial and silenced. This, amongst other reasons, is why educators and school communities often struggle to educate people on these issues. Teachers who have experienced violence or other abuse may often suffer emotional ramifications or avoid topics altogether. There are needs that teachers have that also need to be met. Programs that assist teachers in their own issues and also navigating tensions and conflicts in their own classrooms must be available. The open access education program that allows teachers to do this is the 4 R's: resilience, rights, and respectful relationships program. It is a program that teaches both gender and emotional learning to primary and secondary schools. It includes learning activities based on social skills, problem solving, and help seeking. Therefore, Dadvand and Cahill in 2021 think it should be implemented more often as a part of the curriculum, as gender inequality and negative depictions of mental health are still at large. Often those who experience gender inequality and mental health issues are educationally disadvantaged as they do not receive proper assistance and their peers and educators are not fully educated. This injustice, which is still affecting Australian schools, does not promote equity. Bullying due to disabilities has been a social issue in schools for decades. Students with disabilities tend to be more vulnerable to bullying. Students with hearing impairments may experience bullying due to vocal quality and speech production, whilst others with visual impairments may experience greater difficulty in the development of social skills and communicating with peers and teachers. As a consequence of such bullying due to disabilities, students' emotional well-being has been proven to be negatively impacted. Burke and Bergman's 2010 study analyzed the experiences of students in relation to bullying. They found students with disabilities often experience anxiety, depression, and even decreased self-esteem. This in turn obviously affects their educational outcomes and achievements. Teachers must be aware of the prevalence and impact of bullying and know effective interventions. Otherwise, inequity for students with disabilities will continue. This is like the 730 report by ABC in 2016, which found that a student with an intellectual disability was being physically isolated in what carers now, as well as students, call a cage. Due to his disability, this child experienced inequity, which would ultimately affect his education as well as his general well-being. As you can see in the picture on the poster, this shelter, referred to as a cage, is a boarded and locked up, isolated and dark shelter which is a far distance away from the school in an unattended field. There were no facilities and no educators in the shelter at the time of the punishment. This is an example of how students with disabilities are not being offered equity and excellence in Australian schools. There has been an increasing attention rate and effort from the Australian education system to educational inequities over time. However, there is still so much need for improvement as the promotion of equity and excellence is still quite limited. Thank you.